Welcome to Complinet Global Newscasts. News featured is taken from Complinet Complete, our news, analysis and tracking service, and your comprehensive view of the regulatory landscape. The top story this week is the unfolding news about the abolition of the UK Financial Services Authority, the reform of prudential regulation, and the revolution in UK financial regulation. The chairman of the FSA, Lord Turner, has welcomed the changes to financial regulation outlined by the Chancellor of the Exchequer in his speech at Mansion House this week, and Hector Sant's agreement to remain as Chief Executive of the FSA, leading the transition and the creation of a new prudential authority. Lord Turner said, "The FSA now has the clarity of direction and timescale as well as the leadership that we need to meet the challenges ahead." We spoke to Complinet's Helen Parry about the impact of these changes.
People have said that the FSA focused too much on the consumer and not enough on the prudential, and that is partly why the risks were allowed to build up so much in the system, and the crash of 2007 was not more adequately foreseen and prevented. The new regime, which is being proposed to put prudential regulation in a subsidiary of the Bank of England to liaise very heavily with the bank itself looking after macro-prudential, is designed to address this problem and to create a much stricter and heavier regime of liquidity, capital and risk management.
In the US, representatives from the House and Senate began meeting this week to hammer out a compromise financial reform bill to be presented to the President for signature into law. House leaders have agreed to use the generally tougher Senate version of the bill as the base text from which to work, although there remains significant disagreement between the two versions on a number of issues which will need to be agreed upon. The Senate has asked the Securities and Exchange Commission's Inspector General to conduct a review of the so-called revolving door in which staff move from the agency directly to firms they have previously regulated. We asked Scott McCleskey, our managing editor in New York, about the problem.
Well, I think this is an important issue, but if they focus only on where SEC staff go when they leave, they're just looking at the effect and not the cause. What really needs to be considered is how to keep staff at the SEC in the first place. Other agencies have figured out how to do this, and that's what needs to be the focus of this review. If they get that right, they've served investors and the industry as well.
In the Middle East this week, further to last week's story, the US Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control has stepped up its sanctions against Iran, designating an additional Iranian bank, Postbank, and identifying the new names of dozens of ships that were previously blacklisted. OFAC also targeted 5 Islamic Republic of Iran shipping lines, front companies, and targeted additional people and entities purportedly linked to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And finally, in Australia this week, Australia's non-bank financial services industry has been warned by the Australian Financial Intelligence Unit to improve its compliance with the country's AML regulations after a series of inspections highlighted a number of compliance deficiencies. The Australian Transaction Reports and Analysis Centre said some firms in the non-bank financial services sector had showed lacking compliance with the AML and Counter-Terrorism Financing Act 2006 in terms of risk assessment and systems and controls functions. To read about these or any other stories from Complinet in more depth, please log into complinet.com or contact us if you would like a free trial. Join us next week for another newscast from the Complinet Global News team.